So here is the third passage given to us in the mock that touches upon geography and brushes this area that is really fond to my heart, and that is geopolitics. So this talks about Antarctica, its discovery, the current status, importance, and all that. So let us see. Antarctica, Aristotle reasoned it, eventually it was found, and then remote, nobody settled there, and then these different phases of development. And from there, we say that there is a paradox here now. So what is that paradox? It has been made explicit here. Most threatened, but also most protected. So that's basically the core of this passage. Here is a summary that you can have a look at. And with that, let us dive into our first question based on this passage, which is going to be our question number 9 in the overall scheme of the VARC section. So the author is least likely to agree to which of the following statements. It is a reasoning based question. It is in a way an inference based question. So which of the following is least likely to be true on the basis of the passage? So when I see this, I notice that A and C at least use the word imagined for Antarctica, whereas B and D actually use Antarctica as a theory or a concept. So we can very easily say that it was definitely an imagination. And therefore, A and D are likely to be things that the author will agree with. The choice boils down to B versus D. Now, what is a theory? And why am I really ruling it out? So basically, a theory is a carefully thought out explanation for observations of the natural world that have been constructed using the scientific method and which brings together many facts and hypotheses. Right? So theory is something mightier. Theory is something which is complex. And D, on the other hand, uses the word concept. So concept is an idea that has been formally developed and organized. That's it. An idea that is formally developed, preferably organized. Whereas what is a theory? It is a set of concepts, models, principles, definitions. So it's a sum total of all those things. It's bigger. So ideally, I am not happy with theory and concept both, but concept is a smaller mistake as compared to theory. And that is why we should choose B as our answer. That's the bigger devil of the two. So that is why it is going to be an option that the author is least likely to agree with. And with that, let's dive into our question number 10. Which of the following inferences is incorrect as per the given information? Inference based question. Let's go ahead and apply our true, false, and can't say labels. And then let's see. So A, Antarctica is a unique and remote environment that has been both protected and threatened by human activity. Remember that paradox when it was made explicit? We can very easily label this true on the basis of the reading of the third paragraph. Okay, B, the effects of climate change are posing a significant threat to the ecosystem in Antarctica. True. Yep. That's in fact the crux of the last two paragraphs anyway. C, the native population in Antarctica is at risk of extinction due to the spread of non-native population. So number one, there is no native human population there, and there are no non-native humans who are going to go there. So it's definitely not true with respect to humans. Now, for the other kinds of populations, okay, from flora and fauna, if I look at the flora, the plants, the passage says that there are some local native indigenous species that are going to thrive, whereas the others will be replaced. So it is not that the entire set of native population is at a risk. A part of it, a large part of it is, but not all of it, and therefore this is not true. Let's look at D. The collapse of the West Antarctic ice sheet could have catastrophic consequences for people living in low-lying coastal regions or islands. Absolutely true, backed by the passage. And that is why our answer to this question should be option C. Right? And here is your next question. Which of the following assumptions is not present in the passage? Now, normally when I attempt assumption-based questions, they do take some time and some thought, some effort, and I also very frequently use a negation test. But then this was not one of those questions where I had to spend much thought. Why? I know that an assumption is an unstated premise. Or in other words, an assumption is something that provides support to a conclusion, to an opinion. Now, when I read all of the 4 answer choices, I noticed that option D contradicts the passage. An assumption is not supposed to contradict, it is supposed to provide support. So because D contradicts, it is definitely not an assumption, whereas the other 3 do provide support to something or the other. So physical places can exist in imagination as well. Very first paragraph. B, very first paragraph. That's the reasoning that Aristotle used. And C is definitely true. So D, because it contradicts, can be easily chosen as our answer for question number 11. So D it is. And with that, let's dive into our last question based on this passage. Question number 12, another reasoning based question. And in case you're wondering why so many reasoning based questions, well, last year 11 out of 16 questions in RC, in actual CAT exam, were reasoning based. And therefore, it is imperative that we prepare you for that stringent test. And thus these questions. So let's see. Which of the following statements, if true, will weaken except? So 3 of them will weaken, 1 of them will not, and the one that does not weaken is supposed to be chosen as our answer. So let's start with A. Human Ecology Research Group, University of Oxford, has found evidence of human activity in Antarctica, such as the presence of whaling stations going back to 2000 BCE. Ooh, before Common Era. Nice. Now, if this is true, then it disproves the idea that the continent was previously an unknown and inhospitable place. So this definitely weakens that argument. You notice that's why we have various arguments mentioned here. B. American Geological Institute has found resources such as coal, oil and natural gas in Antarctica. Okay, even if it is true, it does not counter any claim made in the passage. So this can be your answer. So I'm keeping it in running. C. Studies show that some native animals are thriving in the face of global warming. Ooh. The passage actually goes on to say that you're likely to see extinction of such animals. But if there is a particular species or subspecies which is going to thrive, then it is going to weaken that particular argument which talks about extinction of these groups. D. Almost all the powerful nations have claimed territory in Antarctica and have pursued resource extraction. Once again, if this is true, then it weakens that idea of international regulations are effectively protecting the continent's environment, right? The passage makes this claim. If D is true, then the claim is going to be false, and therefore D also weakens. And thus, I think the answer is pretty obvious. It has to be option B. So for question number 12, B it is. So get ready to see many more of these reasoning based questions and make sure that you become absolutely, utterly comfortable with these. Otherwise, you may find that you are uncertain with respect to choosing the correct options. So that's about passage